Cars and trucks race up and down ramps, and the roar of engines bounces off the walls of the canyon. The terrain here seems forbidding, unlikely to host such a complex network of high-speed access roads. Yet here they are. And up there on the hill, above Interstate 80, is the road that was replaced by all of these ramps. Old US 40, lonely and abandoned, but certainly not quiet, here at the mouth of Parleys Canyon. Let's check out this old road. This tangled mishmash of freeways and access ramps connecting Interstates 80 and 215, along with Foothill Boulevard and Parleys Way, is located on the east side of Salt Lake City at the mouth of Parleys Canyon. Surprisingly, even though there are no soaring flyover ramps here, this collection of substandard ramps with sharp turns and short merges supports every possible movement to and from each of the freeways and streets in this jumbled web. The configuration of this interchange hasn't changed since it was constructed in the mid-1960s. A few bridges were added into the mix in the 2010s to facilitate the passage of bicycles and pedestrians on the nearby trails, but that's it. What you see is what they built 60 years ago. Parleys Canyon is one of Utah's oldest transportation corridors, dating back to the earliest days of the pioneer era. In 1849, Parley Pratt built the first road up this canyon that now bears his name. Parley charged tolls to use what he called the Golden Road up to the Golden Pass. 175 years later, 6 lanes of Interstate 80 filled the canyon. But before Interstate 80, there was US 40. US 40 was one of the original transcontinental highways in our nation's first network of highways. Established in November of 1926, US 40 began in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and passed right through this spot on the way to San Francisco. But after 4 decades, US 40 was abandoned, replaced by the shiny new Interstate 80. That was back in 1965. Several sections of the old road were left behind here, so I'm here to explore them. The first thing that you'll notice if you come here and you're not in a vehicle is that it is very noisy here. Whether you are on one of the paths popular with cyclists and pedestrians or just walking on the old US 40 roadbed, the din of traffic here is inescapable. Walking this old road is not a quiet stroll like so many of the others that I film. At various times in history, US 40 was routed between this point and downtown Salt Lake City, either by way of Parleys Way and 21st South through Sugar House, or along Foothill Boulevard. Regardless of which alignment was used on city streets, all traffic headed up and down the canyon ended up here on this 2-lane road, which entered the canyon at about 4,900 feet in elevation, a little bit higher than the current Interstate 80 freeway. You can see here, this is Interstate 80 where you see the trucks, and on this ledge up here, about 25 feet above the freeway, is the remnant of old US 40, and that's where I'm headed. Some of the earliest photos I can find show US 40 splitting into Foothill Boulevard and Parleys Way as it exits the canyon, in a very similar way that the Foothill Boulevard exit ramp splits today. This photo from 1937 illustrates that. This is US 40 coming out of Parleys Canyon, and this is the split. Foothill Boulevard this way, and Parleys Way that way. At this time, US 40 followed Parleys Way. And I've read that the reason for that choice was because the military administration at Fort Douglas didn't want US 40 traffic running through the bays. There was a vista overlook on the canyon side of US 40, located approximately here. There's something else to point out near the bottom of this photo. Coming up from the south is Wasatch Boulevard. But notice that Wasatch Boulevard does not continue across the gulch to meet Foothill Boulevard. Instead, that road turns eastward, heading up the canyon. Now, eventually, Wasatch Boulevard did meet up with US 40 in a T intersection about 3/4 of a mile up the canyon. But just before arriving at that junction, drivers crossed from the south side of the canyon to the north side on this beautiful concrete arch bridge called the Stillman Bridge. Tragically, the Stillman Bridge was demolished in 1964 after a more direct connection across the gulch had been built in the late 1950s. More on that connection in just a second. For perspective, looking up the canyon, the old Stillman Bridge was located just beyond the location of the present-day ramp from westbound Interstate 80 to southbound 215. Before I move on, I want to show a couple remnants of that old road. Looking across the canyon from the north side, the old Wasatch Boulevard is located up here on this ledge, above the modern-day ramp from 80 to 215.
Okay, we have the freeway in the foreground, and then we have the road which represents the transition road between Interstate 80 and Interstate 215. But above that, there's a ledge, which appears to be a straight line. It's about 30 feet above the transition road, and that road would represent the old Wasatch Boulevard.
The roadway is difficult to get to, unlike the section of US 40 that I'll be exploring. In fact, I think it might even be impossible to reach it without walking on the freeway right-of-way. That old road, Wasatch Boulevard, also shows up on this satellite view. Now, when I first spotted that road, before I had done any research, I just assumed that this was just a part of old US 40. But it turns out that this is the curve that would have led to the Stillman Bridge from Wasatch Boulevard. And here it is on the topographic map, too. Now I want to move ahead to 1957, when all of this was upgraded. This photo shows the construction of the direct connection from Wasatch Boulevard to US 40 at the intersection of Foothill Boulevard and Parleys Way on the other side of the mouth of the canyon. Now, spoiler alert, that extension of Wasatch Boulevard that can be seen under construction here in the mid-1950s became the Interstate 215 that we still know today, 70 years later. It's really obvious in this comparison. The end result of this upgrade was this wild intersection. You can see US 40 here, and here's Parleys Way, and Foothill Boulevard, and Wasatch Boulevard. Now, this intersection might have looked efficient on the drafting table, but it soon turned out to be the scene of more than one horrific accident. Mercifully, the lifespan of this intersection was rather short, as the construction of the interstate came only a little bit more than a half a decade later, and this intersection was soon retired. I have one final observation from this aerial view. US 40 clearly has 2 lanes of traffic in each direction in this photo. That came as an epiphany for me. When I shot this footage, again, before I had encountered these photos, I had assumed that US 40 had only 2 lanes, one up and one down. That's what the topo map indicated. But the topographic map was produced before the construction of the Wasatch Boulevard extension. Clearly, the aerial photo showed that there were 4 lanes on US 40 even before the freeway was built, at least here at this point. Now, I'm not sure how far up the canyon those 4 lanes continued before narrowing down to 2. So if you know or even remember, please leave a comment below and fill me in. Now, let's go check out this old road. To get to this section, you'll want to use the Bonneville Shoreline Trail access on the east side of Foothill Boulevard. After not too long of walking, the trail splits off toward this pedestrian bridge over Interstate 80. And soon after that, you're on the pavement that's left over from the 1960s.
This wide spot in the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, I believe, may have been the overlook looking over the Salt Lake Valley. If I'm not mistaken, I think the elevation here is about 4,800 feet, which puts it about 500 feet above the elevation of the valley below. This appears to be an edge line from the original highway. Not too much of this original paint remains, at least not so far in this hike. So it's nice to find this. Here in the shadow being cast by these Jersey barriers, found another remnant of the old edge line. I believe that's Grandeur Peak right there. The pavement for the old road comes to an abrupt end right here. I think it's going to re-emerge when we get closer to that bridge that represents the exit for Interstate 215. Just have to check and see. Somebody's placed a cairn here. I wonder if they're trying to mark the way for me to find this old bridge. So here in the shadow, we've encountered a yellow line, in fact a double yellow line, which obviously would have been the center line of the road. We're right at the point where the ramp to southbound Interstate 215 from westbound Interstate 80 is. At this point, about a mile from Foothill Boulevard. So this is it. We've reached the limit of how far we can go following this trail and the old remnants of US 40. Eastbound from this point, the old road is completely obliterated by the construction of the freeway. The old bridge I was looking for, there doesn't seem to be any evidence of the old footings on this side of the canyon. On the other side, it was right there. But again, all traces of the bridge are gone. If you enjoyed this content, I hope you'll click the like button and let YouTube know that you enjoyed it. That way they'll share it with other people.
I hope this video has inspired you to check out this old road and others like it. There's a lot of transportation history out there just waiting to tell its story. Please give this video a thumbs up so that YouTube will share it with others and keep the legacy of old US 40 alive. If you enjoy the content on this channel, I'd be honored to have you as a subscriber. Thank you for watching.